Well, hey everyone. So, if you guys have been paying attention, I hit 1,000 subscribers. I think I hit 1,000 subscribers Saturday. Um, and as I told you all, I was going to do a video of how I got into the woods business or entrepreneurship. I've been thinking a lot about how to do this and have it be interesting and try to hit all the points, which is a little more complicated than what you would think. So I'm going to try to give my story without making it too long or too short. And I've dug up a few old pictures that I have of some of the different stages, but I don't have as much as I would have liked to. So I guess, starting back when I was probably my more early formative years growing up, most all the local kids worked at a farm, Stevenson Strawberry Farm, and they also did sweet corn and some other stuff, and it was kind of the place where pretty much all the local kids ended up working their summers or spring, summers, and fall. And then there'd always be a few that would be a little more year-round, which, I don't remember exactly, what age, but I lived close enough where I could ride a bicycle there. So I would hop on my bike and ride over there. Started off just being one of the pickers or hoeing, weeding, farm work, stuff like that. Probably until I was, 16 or so, where I had my license and I was a little more independent. And the owner of the farm, I'm not going to give out his first name, but Mr. Stevenson, who my family was close with. I grew up with his sons and stuff, and he always tended to take some of the people that worked there under his wing and did a little more for him. So I think as I got my license, I was more independent enough where that could start to become a thing. And his boys were a little older than me, and they had gone off to college, and at the time didn't have much interest in the farm. So I think probably when I was like 17, somewhere's around there, he propositioned me, and if I wanted to do my own thing. He didn't want to do sweet corn anymore and some of the other vegetables stuff, greenhouse. And of course, being young, I said yes, and I was way more interested in working than going to school. So I'm trying to remember exactly how it went, but I did one year where I didn't, it was kind of a test run. I think I did a few acres, 4 or 5 acres of sweet corn, some greenhouse stuff, and then I'm trying to remember exactly. This is 20 years ago, right? Yep. And anyway, somewhere's along there, going into my senior year, Mr. Stevenson co-signed for my very first loan. Thinking back on it, he must have seen something in me. It wasn't huge. I remember it being like $5,000. It was with Farm Credit. And it was kind of an operating loan so that I could buy seed and fertilizer and stuff like that. So he must have seen something in me. I certainly didn't realize it at the time, that was a leap of faith for him, that I could do that, or at least try it. And got me set up. I got a business account. a checkbook. I can remember being in his office and him showing me how to write checks. I still vividly remember that, him sitting me down and telling me, okay, you do this, you write the date, and then $1,142, and then the cents slash over 100. Sign your name. I've gotten a lot better at that over the years. I've written a lot more checks and borrowed a lot more money. But so that was really kind of my start. And that comes into play in the future too, some of those things. It's kind of funny to think back on it now. So I did that, and I graduated in 2003. I'm 36. And after that, in the year I graduated was the year that I was doing, I think I did, like 10 or 15 acres of sweet corn, a little more. And, there was a lot of, I really wasn't prepared in hindsight. And at the same time, I had become friends with my future brother-in-law. He had not met my sister yet. And his family was in the woods business. They all, most of the family, his father had a pulp truck and a lot of other equipment, and my brother-in-law and his brother were cutting wood by hand with cable skidders and stuff like that. And I just thought that was the coolest. And boy, did I grow an affection for the woods business. And I had already done that, working for Mr. Stevenson in the wintertime, being more one of the full-time employees. We always ended up doing firewood and maybe cutting a little bit. I got a little bit of time on a cable skidder. He had an old 440C. That anytime I could get a chance, I did whatever I could to get on it. So, but meeting my brother-in-law, that definitely, or not my brother-in-law then, but becoming friends, I definitely was enthralled with it. And his father, Bill, was another great mentor that ended up coming into my life. So that summer, as farming was kind of finishing up, I had kind of decided that I did not want to continue farming. And make sure I keep on, I'm trying to keep on a timeline here, so this is kind of the hard part. But so I had kind of, continued the path that I didn't want to farm anymore, and that I really wanted to get into the woods business. Of course, I was young. I was 18 years old. What did I know? So I graduated high school. I finished up farming in September-ish, and man, did I want to buy a cable skidder. And I had a little bit of money. I didn't make a lot of money farming. It just didn't work out for me. And I don't think it was that the farming couldn't have made me money. I don't think I was prepared. I was too young. I needed a little more help. Part of the deal with me doing the farming with Mr. Stevenson was that his work came first, and then I got to do mine. And I needed a little more help from him and guidance. I just wasn't ready. It wasn't his fault. I was young. And so I started looking around for cable skidders, and of course I wanted a John Deere because that's what Bill and my brother-in-law and his brother and most of his uncles ran. And so, but I still needed some help, and I've been trying to think how to really describe some of the way things worked out for me. And they mean different things for me now than they did then. And it was hard. My father wasn't in the woods business. My mother was a school teacher, and my father worked for the state. And my father didn't know much about the business or entrepreneurship, so it was kind of hard for him to help. And we had probably a difficult relationship, where it's probably more getting older now that I see we're more like each other, which sometimes makes things harder. But nonetheless, Dad always did the right thing, no matter what. And I think I'm lucky enough I like to think I am the same and got that from him. So I couldn't buy a skidder on my own. I needed somebody to co-sign. I had the connection with Farm Credit because Mr. Stevenson had co-signed for me, and I had done business there. So when I graduated high school, I found a cable skidder. It was actually one of my brother-in-law's uncle. It would have been Bill's brother. Had a really nice 440D cable skidder. And I'm gonna, after I finish this point, I'll put a picture of it in here. And so we worked out some deal, and I got Dad to get on board with co-signing. And so the deal is for my graduation, he gave me half the down payment, which was $1,500. I had the other $1,500, and he co-signed. And I think Dad, at some point in me telling this story, that he might, I'm not being negative, or it's not supposed to be derogatory towards him, but the way I remember it, and it's kind of fun now. I enjoy this. I'm glad this is part of my story. Dad patted me on the back and said, "Here you go. Basically, I'll co-sign and give you half the down payment for graduating, but don't come back for more." And not that he didn't help me again, but I took that to heart, and I like to think that I never really had to come back again for major help. And he did help me more along the way, but for the most part, I was able to keep myself afloat. I wasn't back at the house every other week or every other month needing help. So I'm gonna stop this clip and put a couple pictures of my first cable skidder right here. So after I bought my first cable skidder, I believe my grandmother had given me a graduating gift of, I forget, it was enough to buy a new chainsaw. And of course, my brother-in-law and his family ran steel, so that's what I was going to run. So I bought my first. Back then it was an 046 steel. They were $625. Right now that same chainsaw is about $1,200. And my Uncle Kurt had a piece of land. I started cutting there, and then I worked there through the fall, and then I had my first big winter job, and it was in Fairfield, and it was fun. I think back on it now, and this will be one of the greatest memories, one of my greatest memories. And it was, my brother-in-law was up there with his skidder, and his brother was up there, Tim. So we had 3 cable skidders up there, and it was like this big thing. And we were up there with the men, and it was my first big winter cutting wood, and I mean, that was just great. So I'm gonna put another clip right here of on that job. And I wished I had taken more pictures along the way of the different types of equipment that I had, and all the different things, but I didn't. I did at first. Of course, we didn't have cell phones back then, or I didn't, that took good pictures. So there I was, 19 years old, cutting wood by hand, working for myself, making a living, figuring things out. And I did that for, probably until I was 21 or 22. And I had bought a slasher. If I can get a picture of that, I'll try to throw that in here somewheres. But then I always had the mindset of more production, or buying more, or doing more, or improving. I was, and I still don't think that's changed. I was never just happy. I always wanted to do more. As soon as I had accomplished one thing, I needed to do something else. Sometimes that was good, and sometimes that was bad. I'm a little better at it now, but so I did that until I was like 21 or 22. And my brother-in-law and I were really close, and he is pretty much the same way. We're not a lot different in the way we thought about business and doing more, and same thing for him. Sometimes it worked out good, and sometimes it didn't. And he, sometime around there when I was 21 or 2, he had bought an old Valmet 646 forwarder and was cutting wood by hand with that. I think he had sold his, he had a 540B John Deere cable skidder. And we did that, or he did that, and then that prompted me to look for a processor. So around 21 or 22, I believe, that spring, he had the forwarder, and I was looking around, and I had that connection with Farm Credit, and I had found a processor that I wanted to buy, and had got turned down by a lot of places that didn't want to loan me the money. Of course, I was 21 or 22, and I wanted I think it was $115,000. I think it was a 2000 653G with a FabTech 4 roller head on it. And I went to Farm Credit, wrote up a business plan, and I got financed. And then Dean and I continued to work for 3 years or 4 years or so together. I don't have a lot of pictures of that first machine, but I do have a picture of, I think it was our first winter working, and during that time too, Dean had bought a little bit newer 840 Valmet, and we had somebody else running the 646 a little bit. He had rolled it over, so there's a picture of that rolled over with my 653 kind of to the right, and a picture of me in the red, like windbreaker type jacket standing there, and I'm going to put that in right here. So that was the 653, and that was the first part of the first winter that I had a mechanical processor. I had sold my cable skidder and the slasher. In that same winter, I moved quick. I bought that same winter. It's kind of funny, I didn't wait too long. I bought a 653 buncher, and let me see. It was just me and Dean. And then we went up north, worked on in the state preserve, and I think Dean had a little extra help. Same guy running that processor. We worked that winter, And I, a lot of the times when I hit a hard spot, I was a lot more irrational then. I was a lot more quick to jump and sell something and change what I was doing, other than putting my head down making it work. That was a big learning curve for me. It's not real good to it's never really good to be reactionary in business. You need to put your head down and either make something work or make a good decision. And so there was a lot of times where I was quick to sell something and change, which seemed like the right thing at the time, but now I don't think so. But so I ended up selling that buncher the next summer, I think. And then I think that fall there was an opportunity to buy another processor with a job. And I had hired somebody to run my 653, and I bought a 153 FabTech with a dangle head on it. I don't have a picture of that. I could probably scrounge one up somewheres and put it in here somewheres. And so I had RJ working for me, and Dean was forwarding the wood still. I think the timeline's right. This was a couple of years into having mechanical stuff, and during 08-09, the financial crisis, I had the two processors, and Dean had, I think he had sold the 646 by that point, was just running the 840 Valmet, and we ended up working on Wagner company ground that winter because things got pretty tight when the financial crisis hit. So we worked up north, and during the beginning parts of my career, in the wintertime, we worked up north quite a bit in the winter. You can always work longer. So we worked up there, and then that spring, RJ decided that he was going to go back to work where he was working. And, again, a lot of this was just not realizing what I needed to do. I was 23 or 4 at that time. I did not realize what it took to keep good employees, or I didn't see the bigger picture pretty much at all. Like I said, I was a lot more reactionary then. And so that spring I felt like it was the right thing to do. I traded both processors in for my first new processor. It was a 501 with a used 4-roller head, and it was just a bad deal. It was another one of those reactionary things. I had the money. I put $50,000 down, and I think I ate $20,000 on the trade-in, but at the time, and who knows if I even looked at it. It was just a terrible investment. I'm glad I'm out of that stage. And it's hard to avoid it. When you're young and an entrepreneur, you're gonna make bad decisions. And I've learned a lot of stuff the hard way. Would I do those things again? Absolutely not. I would never do a lot of the stuff that I did, or the decisions I made back then. So fortunately enough for me, though, some of those bad decisions weren't deal breakers. I was able to navigate, figure it out, and not do it again. So anyways, I had that newer processor. Dean and I were still working up north, and that summer I think Dean had decided that he wanted to do something different, and ultimately that meant have his own processor. And he ended up buying that 153 that I had from Milton Cat, where I traded it in. So I was still just working with just a processor for that year. And then the next spring that changed for me, and I bought my very first forwarder. And I'll put a picture of that here. That was a 1065 tire cap. And started working with that. Pat was working for me at the time, and we went 3 or 4 years he worked for me, worked fine, and then he got done, and that's about time Wes started. Wes has almost worked for me for 8 years now, so that was a little bit of a hard transition. Again, for me, knowing what I needed to do, took Wes a little while to get up to speed, mature a little bit, and me too. And also at the same time, I was running into some of those hard knocks again. Business stuff, depreciations. For any of you guys that are getting into business and going, oh wow, look at this, we're not paying any taxes. You're buying stuff, you got plenty of depreciations. Well, be careful. That will bite you in the ass. That is a game, and nothing's free. So again, I navigated that. Wes worked for me for a little while. I bought a buncher again, and I'll get a picture of that somewhere too, and 608, and I'll put that in here. And I hired a third guy. And again, I was not ready. Wes wasn't ready. It wasn't the right time. And a lot of the stuff that it just was timing. So I ran that bunch a little bit that winter. The next summer, again, I sold it. Reactionary. And I should have kept that. In hindsight, I would have been, a lot of it was just that I wasn't making the right decisions. I didn't know how to. My solution to digging out of a hole was to react and sell something, not just look at it from a different angle and grind, which would have been the right way to do it. And at the same time, again, here comes my father. And a lot of things that I didn't see, I've learned a lot from him, whether he knows it or not. He's a very smart man. He's good with money. He's conservative the way he looks at things, and I think that's helped me a lot. I've always observed people around me. I've always been very curious. I've always looked to people that I saw as successful and absorbed whatever I could. So Dad was retiring that year, and he took over the books, which was much needed. I was always very unorganized with paperwork. It was never my strong point. I didn't know what was going on as much as I should have. I understood what we needed to do operationally in production, but the other end wasn't getting taken care of, and that's as important, or if not more. And Dad knew that, and he knew that I needed him to step in. So he stepped in, and I was having a hard time, and this was some of probably the best advice I'd ever got from him, because he's not the most because this isn't meant in a bad way. He's not the most emotionally available, or he's not somebody that's right there telling you how to do things or giving you advice all the time or anything like that. But I was having a hard time during that winter when I had that 608 buncher, just mentally, and just putting all the stuff together, and I called him probably one of the only times I've ever called him, I needed his advice. I needed help. I was upset, and had a lot going on in my head, and he kind of, I was going on and about how, I was never this stressed when I cut wood by hand, and maybe I should just sell everything and just go back to cut wood by hand. And it really was some of the best advice he ever gave me. And he said, look, you're just looking for the easy way out. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. You're going to, get ahead on your taxes and get things in order and organized and on top of things, but it will get better. And he was right. I might not wanted to hear it, because 3 or 4 years at that time was like, I can't do that. I can't imagine. But he was right, and I have his will. I might have talked. I don't think I could give up, and I didn't, obviously. So there was some little more to the conversation than that, but that was some really important advice for me. The easy way out, the quick fix, the thing that's going to make you happy right now or feel better right now is not the right thing to do. You need to stick with it, put your head down, and keep going, and try to get smarter, learn from your mistakes, and look at it from a different angle. So, going into the next summer, I got rid of the 608. I got rid of the third employee. Was starting to regroup, and that year I decided I needed a little newer forwarder, so I bought the 574 Cat, and I'll put a picture of that in right here. And we started to move forward. It was still a journey. Wes slowly improved over the years. I got better. It was still a struggle. I still was kind of treading water there. But over time I become less reactionary. I kind of learned that those times never really helped anything. And so we worked for another, I'm trying to think of timeline now, 2 or 3 years, kind of treading water, not really getting ahead. And then I started to think in bigger pictures. I kind of had this sense that, this isn't working. I'm not the type of person to just, if something's not working or I'm not getting ahead, I'm not the type of person to sit there and just let that happen. And I might not know what to do, but I'm thinking about it. And so I just started thinking in this greater picture term, like there's got to be something different. And I had been working for the company I started working for the company that I'm working for now. And Mike, one of the owners, had come out, and I was talking to him, and he had a lot more going on, and I respected his opinion. And that's when he asked if I wanted to try having somebody lay wood down for me instead of me owning a bunch. And I thought to myself, this isn't working. So yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick with it. And that ended up being one of kind of a catalyst for me, where having somebody else lay the wood down, it allowed me to produce so much more with my processor that I was a better manager. I started to realize more the importance of, fixing stuff right and fixing it now. And before then, when money was a struggle, I tended to just patch and half-ass stuff. And I think I kind of understood it, but it's hard when you're focused on money so much. You end up hurting yourself because you end up revisiting things to fix them again and again and again. And it may seem like, how do I afford this now? But you have to do it. Even if you don't have the money, you have to fix it right. You can't afford not to. Otherwise, it'll just keep dragging you down. So when I was able to produce so much more, it allowed my focus to change, where anytime anything happened to that forwarder, I could see the production loss, and the wood was on the ground. And so I started to, let's just fix it right, because I knew that when we got back going, the wood was there. And when I was cutting off the stump and Wes was right on my butt all the time and we weren't producing like we should, that was a lot harder for me mentally. So when I did that, it kind of changed things. And then that next spring was when I bought this new processor that I have now, or somewhere along that line, a year or so after that, because things were going better. I felt a lot better about things. And then during that timeline, the guy that was laying wood down changed his plan and stopped laying wood for us down. It wasn't that easy to find somebody else. So I was still doing better because the forwarder was in much better shape. I had a new processor, so I could just run this processor and not be fooling around with that machine. And so, I always had in my head again that I wanted to um, have a buncher again. I really liked that a lot better. And it took a couple years, and it was looking for the right machine and this and that. So, well, a year or so ago, and I'm thinking I don't want to skip over anything either, but this is a little hard. This is, at this point, we're talking 16, 17 years span. So, or that's how long I've been cutting wood. And so, where was I? So he had stopped laying wood down for me, and I went another year or two, and then I tried doing some stumpage on my own, which was fine. But I really liked the buncher idea because for a processor, you need a certain stand of wood, and I understood that there's a lot more work out there that nobody's going to fight over that's good for processors, that you need a buncher to kind of lay the wood down ahead of you. And it allowed for more work closer to home, and it takes the peaks and valleys and streamlines your production more for a processor. And I wanted consistency. That's a big thing with logging. You got to have consistency. So I was searching for that, and then some real good friends of mine decided to get out of the woods business, and they had the 822. I'll put that picture here. And so, it happened kind of quick, but I knew that was the right machine. I knew who owned it. I knew it was in really good shape, and I knew that 822 was such a productive, speedy machine that was the one that was going to work for me. Because if I had bought even that 608 I had, which was in good shape, it's too slow. And so for me to and I had just paid off my forwarder the fall prior to me buying the 822. So it was half the payment of what my forwarder was. So I figured, I can buy this, and if I don't use it, I can park it. This isn't critical that this works. I was giving myself some room. But I knew that for me to be able to run a processor and a forwarder, the machine, the third machine, the buncher, has to be a pretty speedy, efficient machine. If you had something that was kind of slow or tinkery, I don't think it would work for me. You wouldn't have enough time, and it would kind of end up impeding your production. So I knew that was the right machine, even if I paid a little more money for it. And so I started with that, which was another learning curve. Things changed. And then last winter, I went off I went off stumpage and went back to the company I worked for a year ago, Timberlands, and it was good timing. The winter sucked, but I could see how well it worked, and it was working well for me. And we were having more issues with the forwarder, which then led the thought process to buying a new forwarder. At the same time, Dad had got me to a place with books where the books were, paperwork was good enough, but probably not where it should be. And he didn't want to do it anymore. Dad's getting into his late 60s. It worries him. He's stressed out about my finances, and so I started to look for a professional bookkeeper, somebody that's what they do. And it didn't really land on somebody until early this last summer. But during the winter, I started to see that the new forwarder was coming into the picture. So we worked that winter. We demoed the forwarder last March. I had pretty much made up my mind that that's what was going to happen, but it wasn't etched in stone until May when we took delivery. And here's a picture of the forwarder. which I'm sure most of you have watched the channel and seen the picture, which ended up being a real good thing. It was scary. I've got a little more payments than I've ever had, but the consistency, I can't hammer the word consistency enough in logging, or really any kind of business. And we're still fine-tuning it, for sure. Doing things better, and how I'm working and how Wes is working and stuff like that. So, and then this summer I've got a professional bookkeeper that's really good. It's better for my relationship with my father, and stuff's in order. She's good. It was a little bit of a slow process, but she's, and it was mainly for me to grasp it, but she's paying all the bills and balancing the, reconciling the credit card statements and the checking account and everything that goes with it. And this will be one of the first years that come January 1st or right around there, I can bring my stuff to the accountants and know what my taxes are, start getting on top of paying quarterlies and all that good stuff. And so, I've got a lot to learn still. And there's a lot more to the story. But that's a general kind of, this is probably 30 minutes or so. But it's supposed to be, it's really the American dream as far as I'm concerned. That somebody like me, I wasn't good at school. I can remember being a senior in high school and just, skipping a lot of school, and my mother really just, I know you're going to do all right, but just graduate high school for her. Because I could have cared less if I graduated high school. I'm glad I did, but I didn't care. But somebody like me that wasn't great at school, the family's not in the business, can have a dream and make that opportunity in this great country is there. It's not a given that it's going to work for you, but it can. And you put your head down, and it's going to be hard times, but can also treat you really well too. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity and the family that I have, because I couldn't have done it without them either. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope you guys have a great Christmas and holiday, and you and your families all stay safe. I hope I kind of hit most of the points that I wanted to, and in my story of entrepreneurship and logging and how I started. I could talk about it for a day, but that's not going to be a fun YouTube video. So anyways, if you guys have questions or comments or whatever, like, subscribe, throw your comment in below about, if there was something I needed to hit on more or whatever. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and a little bit of the history of how I got into this business and to where I am now. So have a great holiday, and we'll catch you on the flip side.